Welcome to Rise and Shine with Alissa. I am your hostess, the consultress, bringing you amazing conversations with interesting people from the forefront of investing, entrepreneurship, and parenting. Because let's face it, a lot of times what we do is for other people so that we can have better enjoyment of life. And that's why we get into business to start with, and why investments kind of round out the strategy for all of us. In this age of disruption, no one is thinking the way we thought last week, last year, last decade. It's all new and up for review. And I have the pleasure and the privilege to have these conversations live and give you a peek in the window. So let's roll here with my esteemed guest, Ben Albert. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Let's roll. This is going to be fun, Alissa. We were just talking, and you're like, we got to click record right now because I just like spending time with you. Like, the conversations are great.
Heck yeah. Listen, and good people, and when you're lined up and you feel that zing, like that's how you know that you should find more reasons to hang out with these people, right? Ben and I, we had a conversation, Ben, where it was like our first introductory meeting, and we're like, are we looking in a mirror right now? What's going on? A lot of what I feel like we have in common is that focus on providing value, being the best self that you can be, and then kind of releasing that stigma of what we tend to do to ourselves, like we should on ourselves and think what
Mm.
we have to do to control. And like while we were in the green room, we're like, hey, isn't that interesting? When I release control of what must be, all the cool stuff happens.
Even sometimes, like, I'm a scheduler, and I'll plan in loss of control. Like, I'll go camping for 4 days, knowing I'm not going to be able to access technology, like I won't have internet or any of that. But I have to plan in loss of control. But I even feel like having to plan it. Like, I want to just do what's best based on where life takes me. And sometimes it's really hard to, but you have to take your hand off the wheel and lose control a little bit once in a while.
Yeah, it's trust. It's trust that like what it took to get you here wasn't all the niggling or the planning. The act of planning, my one of my favorite entrepreneurs, Craig Waldman, said this, it's not the plans that are important, it's the planning.
Mm,
So who you are becoming in the act of like making these plans and then just saying, okay, well, the moment the plan is done, it's already irrelevant and or maybe not irrelevant, but it's already aged and it's already dying. It's time for creation. And I find that, I put some time in my calendar for like a solid 4 month chunk. I mean, this is the scariest thing I've ever
wow.
done in my business to say, like, this is reflection time. This is recreate time. It's seize
Mm,
opportunity time. But mostly it's observation and hand off the wheel time because I
mm.
recognized working my business in fiscal quarters gave some structure and some edification to the mechanics of the business, but it wasn't allowing for how I, as the founder, the entrepreneur, come to those spaces and like what my managing my energy is like. So when it's like my birthday over the summertime, I'm
Yeah.
like, hands off the wheel, man. I mean, all this stuff is just going to keep flowing and we'll see what happens. And like, so when you've taken time like that away from like the marketing and the community development stuff, what kind of results are you seeing in that hand off the wheel time?
So I'll talk about two things because there's the long-term hand off the wheel, which is the greatest thing ever. But I actually hurt relationships and made mistakes because I was so structured, so driven, very visionary, very focused, that someone could walk. Generally, it was my partner because I was working from home when I'm this example I'm thinking of right now, could walk in my room, my office, and be having a bad day, and I didn't have time for her because it wasn't on the schedule.
Hmm.
Don't ask me about parenting. It's like when we're so driven and so scheduled, we miss those moments that require flexibility just because we didn't schedule it in. Or someone will give me a call, hey, do you want to grab a drink? And I already predetermined that I'm staying home, so I don't go to hang out with them. So I've had to learn to be flexible on my day to day. And then I still love planning in long spurts of complete, like, I call it creative week. I haven't done like full 3 to 4 month periods, but I'll have a creative week that I block it in my calendar, and I do that intentionally because it's impossible to book a meeting there. However, I might book a meeting if it's required of me for a client concern or this or that. But I do have the creative week that I block, and that's Ben time to be creative, to detach from this, and to really honestly like go apologize to all the people that I ignored when it wasn't creative week.
It's funny. Um, this morning, my husband told me, I've noticed something about you. That you have this 4 week cycle that it's like, I'm on it, my calendar's full, awesome things are happening, I'm great. Then the next week is like, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. I'm wondering if I can handle or hold it all. And by week 3, I'm like, I need a pause because if I don't pause, I'm going to break.
Oh,
And then that 4th week comes as like insecurity time. It's like, I feel like I took too much time and I've let so much go, and it's not reality, but it
no,
is
it's
the
not.
feeling that accompanies that period of pause or that creative week, like you're saying, where it's like, well, now I have to hop back on the treadmill or the hamster wheel and go ahead and ramp things up again and put things into my space. And it was a really interesting comment that he made because I've been feeling this as I endeavor to have this hands off the wheel time as a full trimester of my year planned as, let's see what happens and integrate new things and let stuff go. This is what's showing up. It's being aware, like one level higher, of the tendencies and the patterns that we have in our confidence and our insecurity and how they're like kind of tied together.
Do you
And
find, do you find, to me, that feels too long. Have you,
so yes, I will say there is. So within the 4 months, it's the theme. It's not
yeah.
all unplanned. It's the
Mm,
theme of dismantling, being curious and experimenting, and not staying, I guess, logistically, structurally rigid. So the theme is hands off the wheel, but there are, micro trends inside of there that are not like, okay, I'm not going to pay attention and check out for that length of time. Does that help kind
no,
of give context?
no, I love that because, like, podcasting, for example, I have a podcast, I'll guest on podcasts, and between my show and other people's shows, some weeks, or we'll go with like a month. In 1 month, I might do 40 episodes, like an insane amount. I record like 3 months worth on my podcast. I guest on like two podcasts a day. I do it all on that month. And then the following month might be the holiday season, and I don't even take meetings for 4 weeks straight. So I get doing it in spurts. And I like the seasons. Like, we're not meant to be the same all the time. We're meant to have times for different things, just as the seasons change.
Ah, I love that. Yeah, like at the end of the day, we are seasonal beings. We live through, I mean, even if you live in southern Florida, like there's hurricane season and then there's sunny, right? They have summer and sunny and that's it. But no, we're used to the turning of situations, and like I love that the seasonality of the year isn't the only seasonality that we experience. Like my husband just noticed a 4 week cyclical seasonality in my
Mm,
approach. And I noticed that fiscal quarters were keeping me too rigid. So I introduced this larger structure to help me be more creative, essentially. And, when I notice when it's dark and dreary outside, the fire burns lighter on the inside and I have more reflection time. When it's
mm.
like sunny days and I want to be outside, I also have that shift in focus where I'm not going to be tactically tied to like that get shit done mentality. I need to be more hands off, but I have to, like you said, plan for those times. So I think my question next is like, how do you approach planning for flexible structure in your world? Because like I'm fascinated with like how similar we are, but also the seasonality that you speak of seems to like beg more questions from me.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to scheduling though. I just block stuff off of my calendar. Um, Really simple example is 3 times a week I go to my personal trainer. It's 9:30 to 10:30, but you can't book anything until 11:30. So after I get done with my trainer, I might go and I might go get a massage. I might go get a smoothie. I might come home and do a little bit of work. I might squeeze in an appointment because I feel like doing it, but I have buffer times everywhere. Weirdly enough, when we're talking today, I have like less buffer than usual, so I'm like not even living by example right now. But in between my meetings, especially the most important ones, there's generally a 30-minute buffer. Sometimes I leave an hour-long buffer, like I take in a lunch in between. Um, Simply put, there's no award for having your schedule filled to the brim. And if you look at my schedule, it is a brick wall, but a significant amount of that brick wall is actually me brick walling in time to be flexible. So it looks full, but it's because I literally block off 2 hour periods at a time. Based on the time of year, I'll cut off my schedule and I'll end my day at 3. Like it's really dependent. And honestly, people can take this and like, I don't know if you should even take my advice. You should consider it, but really you should kind of play with different things on your own schedule. But for me, it's like just being really, really, really like crazy with blocking off time so I know that I'm not overwhelmed. And then you can always fill it, but you can't unfill it once it's full without canceling a bunch of meetings because you got sick because you overworked yourself.
Ugh, you're singing my song. It's like the difference. Have you read the E Myth by Michael Gerber?
No, I've heard though.
So he talks about like the three hats that we as entrepreneurs wear as the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, the owner. And so we at some point are our own boss looking at us, the employee, saying, "Are you working your full capacity?" And there's also time where us as the employee is like, "Oh, I hope the boss doesn't notice that like I need to take time to like chill out." And in the middle of my day, sometimes I schedule a nap or I
Mm,
schedule reading time because like you said, that buffer is super important to stay high performing and high intention. But like you have to realize that you have different personalities talking at you at any given point of your day to day or your year to year. And so teasing out that tendency, I'm listening to you and like taking like copious notes over here, that taking that time for buffer in between important things so that you have time to address what comes up or address what your needs are instead of what we tend to think as technicians in our business that we have to have our calendar completely full through of execution stuff. So there's merit to planning for planning. There's merit to planning for rest. And there's merit to planning for implementation for sure. But knowing which person you're being in that trilogy is I
yeah.
find to be really helpful. So when I'm in that first week that my husband was talking about, going, I'm awesome. I have a full schedule. Things are happening. All of the things I've been working on are starting to precipitate, and I'm participating. That's me in technician from the architect and from the manager. Like,
Mm,
that's why I get to feel that way.
mm. I love it. We have a luxury too. As you are speaking, and I'm thinking about like this, like we have such a luxury that we can be flexible with our schedules. There's wins and losses with all the decisions in life. Sometimes I kind of wish I could just clock in at 9, clock out at 5, get paid 200K a year, and not have to worry about crap. My life is super flexible, but sometimes I work a 12-hour Sunday. So we have a luxury here, but we also have a responsibility. So I love what you're saying because there's so much luxury. Some people are looking at their calendar and they're like, this is why I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I can't just, oh, I'm just going to go take a week off. I'm going to go take a massage in the middle of the day. Like, it's not possible. There's luxury, but then again, part of that responsibility is like working on a Saturday, working on a Sunday,
Yeah, doing
having a
what
lot
needs to
of
be done.
not making lots of money guaranteed.
Yeah, right. We're betting on ourselves. We're risk takers at the end of the day, and the responsibility to seeing that risk all the way through is also us.
It's so funny you said betting on yourself, risk takers. I've never thought about this. I don't like gambling or going to casinos because I'm a very addictive personality. So I think instead of going to a casino, I started a business and that was just my version of it.
Listen, I have a story from Atlantic City in my early 20s where I lost 20 bucks at a slot machine. I was miffed. I lost 50 bucks. I was pissed. I'm like, I'm going to the bar where money buys something. And I never gambled again. And here I am taking these risks and doing the uncomfortable that seems like the impossible, and it becomes normal. Like, that's what we get to do. That's the responsibility and the luxury, I think. That's the new
Mm,
dynamic that we get to employ being self employed.
it's beautiful.
Ooh, I might want to write that down too. This conversation is so lovely and fulfilling for me, but I do want to let people know, like, what does Ben do for work? I want to let everybody know kind of this genius that you're seeing here in action right now. Like, how do you use that to
Genius.
create value in the world? And, like, how do you pay that forward?
You just call me a genius?
Yeah, I did. I mean, genius knows genius.
I didn't
So
learn how to tie my shoes until I was like 14.
you had the Velcro shoes, so you were 14?
I had a crush on the camp counselor, so she would tie them for me. She got really irritated, so she started tying them super freaking tight. Um, and I couldn't get them off and back on, so then I had to learn how to tie them.
All right. Well, okay. I
I don't
might
think I've
not
ever
take the
shared that
genius
story.
back, but we all have our limitations. Or for you, that was fulfilling because she kept doing it for you. Gives me a very poignant viewpoint into my son right here. But so
Exactly.
what is
Just
the
a boy with a crush is really all it is.
yeah? Well, so what is the work that you do in this world that you get to pay this awesomeness forward in?
Yeah, the short version is my goal is always just to get the wisdom, the knowledge, the solutions from the folks who have it to the folks who need it. I get to bridge that gap. I get to be that bridge. And I do it in lots of ways. But the three main focuses is I'm a podcast host, Real Business Connections, and it's all about like taking all these brilliant mentors, business professionals, people that have done the stuff that honestly like they're the actual geniuses as far as I'm concerned, and platforming them, amplifying them, getting that wisdom to the people who need it. As a business professional, I have a marketing company. So it's actually like partnering with professionals like that and doing their marketing so they can impact more people. And then, as you know, I have a mastermind peer kind of collective called Grow Getters Only, which is for that peer to peer support for other established entrepreneurs to be in a room with similar people, learn from each other, and bring mentors into the group to teach as well. But at the core, like, wisdom from the people who have it to the people who need it. And I don't assume that I'm a guru, expert, genius that knows everything. I put myself in the need it learner category. And as I learn and as I grow, I find ways to amplify other people while I do it.
And so my comment stands as
Mm,
genius because what I'm hearing from you is that the connector space of making sure that people's needs are met and people's network is full of people who can provide said support or what have you. I'm like, I see you
hmm
being a connector in, especially in the age of disruption where people are like bombarded with information, people are bombarded with shoulds and coulds, and also like fear and death and damnation, right? All of these distractions exist, but
Right.
being curious about people and being genuine in your business is a huge freaking advantage for the likes of others that are combating the noise in their own channel, in their own signal, but then needing to support or be supported by other things. Because nobody does this thing called business alone, or
Mm,
investing, or parenting, to be truthful. Everything is coming from a place of someone else's willingness to support, connect, and be able to plug in the right resources at the right time.
mm,
And that seems to me to be the number one virtue and value in this age of like machine learning and digital noise making and all of these things that vie for our attention, is like how to get really present and allow people to get what they need. It's a huge gift. I'm pretty sure that that's what I saw in you the first time that we met, and
Thank
why I
you.
was like, "Hey, we need to find more places to hang out," because it's not as abundant as one would think out in the real like realness of the day to day busyness of life. And I also find that with the entrepreneurs that I'm coaching, how do you find that truth inside of all of the noise? So, is there a specific way that you tend to go about creating those connections or creating those environments that tends to be valuable for folks?
Million ways. Let's get tactical in a second. For a moment, I want to talk about toxicity.
Yes.
And nothing's more toxic, in my opinion, than the concept of I picked myself up from my bootstraps. I willed my way to the top with grit and grind. I asked the question, well, who made your bootstraps? Who made the boots? Who bought from you along the way? Who made the clothing? Who made you? Don't you have parents? So the concept that I'm going to do this on my own and I'm going to will my way to the top is crazy. And technology's never made it easier to have access to opportunities to move your way up. But if nothing's possible without other people, someone has to buy your product, someone has to recommend you, someone has to refer you. You ideally want to feel happy and fulfilled. You don't want to have a heart attack at 45 because your life stinks. So if you come to the understanding that you don't have to lift yourself up from your bootstraps, even the people in the darkest place, even the Oprahs of the world, found mentors and help along the way. You go, oh, wow, all I need to do is be willing to ask for help and be willing to help more than I ask. So when I started, I asked for help a lot because I didn't know anything. And now, since so many people put chips on me and that bet ended up being a positive bet for them, I find ways to help them, refer them, grow my network, highlight people. And we can go tactical in a second, but I just wanted to break that toxic mindset that we have to do it alone, that I'm going to be a solopreneur because I don't fit in and I'm a creative genius. Like, no, you're probably not a creative genius. You might be brilliant, but you're not going to do it without the humility of working and helping with other people. And the collective whole is going to be way more enjoyable and empowering than just your little vision.
Oh, drop the freaking mic. Rewind, watch that again.
Except for the little vision part. I didn't mean to call your vision little, but it's little when it's just you.
Yeah, yeah, right? It takes a village in every sense of this world. Like you're doing it. I love the analogy of who made your bootstraps
Yeah.
because that just distills it and simplifies it down to like, oh, right. I can have gratitude for absolutely everything. I think it was Einstein that said you can either view everything as a miracle or nothing as a miracle. And I am totally botching that quote, but
It
this
makes sense.
idea that relationships run the world, it's absolutely true. It's you're a conduit for value. And how you go about doing that is based on, your unique gifts and talents, yes. But it's not in a silo, it's not by yourself, and it certainly isn't this myth of self-made, right? Self-made requires a lot of other people contributing to you, with you, from you, and for you.
I'm looking around as you, I'm so sorry that I'm distracted, but I'm like, shit, dude. Like, I've got walls and they're painted, and I've got a camera in front of me and all this technology, and I created none of it. I'm just like an at home business online marketer. Like, who gives two craps? Without contractors, without technicians, without brilliant people getting their hands dirty as a collective whole, none of this environment, this controlled environment around me that can do anything I ask it to do is possible. Ben is nothing without all the people that built the stuff around him. Am I off the beaten path?
No, you are on signal, my friend. Tactics, and then we want people to know where to find you. So
Yeah,
get onto that tactics ride for just a minute.
What category? So let's set a scenario. Like what are we being tactical on? Is it LinkedIn? Is it solopreneurship? Is it a podcast? Is it sales? Is it marketing? Are we a millionaire? Are we starting from zero?
I think the best tactical piece based on our conversation so far is how to transcend that solopreneur mentality to enterprise level thinking and what action steps that might require for folks to get their mind wrapped around so they can prepare to do that.
So I don't know if I'm an enterprise level thinker because I don't even know what that means.
It means not solo. I
Okay.
just put a label on what you
Mm.
already said.
It's beautiful. I like to talk about the CAN system. I'm going to simplify it for everyone. There's lots of C's. They're all important, but create, content, collaborate, connect, and network. So you think about CAN and how you can do anything. It's create and network. It's content and networking. It's collaborate and network. I always find ways. So networking can feel difficult. Tactically, it's like I go to Vistaprint, I print out 500 business cards, I hand out 12, and then I feel icky, and then I just never hand out the other 488. Or I show up with all 500. I had a business card to everyone I talk to and everyone I meet for the entire day. And when I'm done handing out business cards, no business came. You froze on me, Alissa. I don't see Alissa anymore. Is she
Hi,
back?
I'm back.
You froze?
And the recording is still in progress, so I'm hoping you said something brilliant while I was gone. So our
It,
listeners were like, "Hi Ben, just you? Cool."
if you want assistance, I can edit that part out because I was speaking something brilliant and then you were frozen for long enough that I just completely stopped entirely.
So let's pick it up because I heard all of it. I heard
Yes.
all of it right up until Alyssa, you're frozen.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, you're super frozen on my end. So I actually did this. I went on Vistaprint. I had 500 business cards. I literally just threw out like three sets of different versions because I kept on changing my services and I never handed them to anybody, but I knew I'd get a discount if I buy a lot. And you're either the person that like buys these business cards thinking you're going to network and you never hand them out, or you're the person that prints all 500 and they're gone in 3 days at a conference because everyone you meet you hand a business card to. And to me, maybe that worked back then. I never lived in a time where I feel like that worked.
Yeah, say
I
more.
I lean into creation driven networking, content and network, collaborate and network. And this is a whole we could do freaking a whole podcast on just this. I determined what I valued and I determined who I wanted to connect with. So once I understand what do I value, who do I want to connect with, and who am I uniquely positioned to serve, I go to networking events, I go to virtual meetups, any of that stuff, know exactly who I am, who I serve, who I want to connect with, and I want to create stuff. The reason I was so excited that we were going to do this podcast together is this is the CAN system. We create and network. Instead of just jumping on a one to one, we get to create something together, co collaborate. We get to share audiences. We get to share value. We get to build know, like, and trust. And now, when I know someone who needs your service, it's easier for me to make that introduction because I know you much better.
Yeah.
So, the tactical aspect is understand what you value, who you serve, and ultimately who you want to connect and collaborate with and create something with them. It could be a podcast. It could be starting a networking event together. It could be a book club. It could be I'm a graphic designer, so I want authors to give quotes. I'll turn them into graphics. We'll share people, we'll share network together. If I'm a photographer and I want to take like fancy restaurant photography, maybe I volunteer my time to take pictures of a menu at a very high-end restaurant, knowing that they're going to be an advocate for me. And once I have that portfolio built, I can go and pitch my services to any restaurant I want. How can I create and network? This is coming from kind of an introverted person who isn't the best at showing up randomly and just charming everyone I meet. I think about what can I create? And then I find people to create with. And then I think about my connections. What are they good at? And how can I connect them with the right people? So it becomes like a creative, collaborative process versus who am I going to sell today?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love how that ties right into that visual of the box of business cards and handing them all out like spray and pray and hoping somebody calls you back. Or I
Hmm.
handed out 12 because I didn't quite feel like I could, should, would, etc. And then nothing happened. Like I feel like it's all done in that space of like, how can I serve you? What can we do together? And then, oh, there's opportunity, there's people to connect. And continuing to build that relationship in community. I think if we were to wrap a big bow around this conversation about being, it would be in community so that value is created, not just directed. And so I really appreciate this conversation because I have gotten a lot of clarity myself here around, how is it that I show up and some you're affirming for me a lot of the reasons why the Rise and Shine podcast even exists
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's to create that connection and to provide a platform for people to understand one another and then go, hey, I think I really like that conversation. Let's see where we can take it. Or do you know anybody who connects people with the right frames and frame of like, because people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And
Hmm.
that trust is created when you're in service. Like that's my word for the year. I've had many words of the year. Right now, my word of the year is service
Ooh.
because from that place, I feel really good about engaging and continuing to create with people in community. Not a community, but creating like the true value and purpose of community. That's how I host my masterminds. They're not like product driven and they're not process driven, they're community driven. People that have similarities, be that being babes in business or men in business or spiritual entrepreneurs, whatever, wherever I find commonality, I'm always creating the ability for people to get networked together and to be valuable for one another. Because if I'm bringing those people together and they're finding value, I get to feel good, number one. And number two, people are looking to me to say, well, who else do you know? And how
Mhm.
else can you help me and I help you? So, like, the better it gets, the better it can get. Where can people go to find you and learn more about kind of how you're mixing it up and what you're creating?
Yeah, so I do lots of things. I wanted to make it super simple for everybody. That's why I named the podcast Real Business Connections. And that's why I'm actually changing my name from my marketing firm from Balbird Marketing to just Real Business Connections. Because wherever you found this or on Google, just type in real business connections and like this first, share this first. Like none of this is possible without Alissa. So I want to be humble enough to know like you are the reason I'm here. So show some love for your girl first and then type in the words real business connections. And if you can't spell it, don't reach out.
That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, thanks a million. Cheers to you. The world is better because you are in it, my friend.
We'll
You
see
will
about that.
catch this podcast. We do a new broadcast every single week at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time every Monday. So click like, subscribe, comment below what you found the most valuable because we're here to serve. That is our number one priority and initiative. So thank you so much for being here, being real, and creating real business connections, Ben. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Cheers.